ER model. ER stand for Entity Relationship Model. The relationship between the strong entity and the weak entity is called identifiable relationship. When there are n entities are participating in a relationship, the relationship is called as n-array relationship. The attribute which are derived from the other attribute is called derived attributes. Hello everyone, welcome to another session of DBMS. I am Soundarya from CS department, Vidhyaashram First Grade College, Temple of Excellence, MYSURU. So today in this session, let us see chapter 2 of your unit 1 ER model. So ER model, ER stand for Entity Relationship Model, and it's a high level data model. So this model is used to define the data elements and the relationship for the specified system. It develops a conceptual design for the database. It's also developed a very simple and easy design view of data. In ER modeling, the database structure is portrayed as a diagram called entity relationship diagram. So using ER model, we write a certain diagrams for the real world object, that is entity relation model. Let us see what is entity. Entity is nothing but a real world object which has a physical existence, which is independent. Say for example, person, so which has a physical existence, card, pen, remote. So these are all the physical existence. So when it comes to definition, entity can be a real world object, either animated or inanimated, that can be easily identifiable. So which can be easily identifiable when you see certain things, car, person, so which can be easily identified, and the real world existence. In that we have tangible entity. So tangible entity means real world object and or physical existence. Say for example, person. When you take person, it has a name, age, mobile number, address. So intangible, which is the real world existence and has a physical existence. Next is intangible entity, which are logical existence. Say for example, bank account number. So in entity we have two types. One is strong entity and weak entity. So strong entity has a key attribute which can have the uniquely identified, and the strong entity is represented by rectangle. Strong entity is represented by a rectangular box which has a key attribute. When you consider a student table, it has roll number, mobile number, age, gender and name. So it's an example for strong entity. Weak entity. So weak entity do not have a key attribute. It cannot be identified by its own. So it is represented by double outline rectangular box. So here we have it is represented by double outline rectangular box. Here we have taken address. So in this address we have house number, city, location and state. The relationship between the strong entity and the weak entity is called identifiable relationship. Next is entity set. It's the collection of entities that have the same entity type. Say for example, here we have taken employee. In employee set, which include the details of employee itself, here we have the details of employee 1, employee 2 and employee 3. So it's a collection of entities that have the same entity type, that is entity set. Next we have attributes. Attributes are the properties which define the entity type. So what type of entity it is, that is defined by attributes. In attributes we have three types. One is simple attribute, composite attribute and derived attributes. Simple attributes are the attributes which contain atomic values which cannot be divided. Say for example, phone number, age, which cannot be divided. That is example for simple attribute. Second one is composite attribute. Composite attributes are the attributes which are composite to other attributes, and it is represented by ellipse. These ellipses are connected to other ellipses. Say for example, name. So the name has first name, last name and middle name. So this is an example for composite attribute. Next is derived attribute. So the attribute which are derived from the other attribute is called derived attributes. Derived attribute have two types. One is single valued attribute and multi-valued attribute. In single valued attribute, it contain only single value. Say for example, social security number. That is an example single valued attribute. Multi-valued attribute which contain more than one value, and it is represented by double vowel. Say for example, phone number. A person can have more than one phone number or more than one email address. That is an example for multi-valued attribute. Next is key attribute. Key attribute is a collection of attributes that is uniquely identify an entity among the entity set, which is represented by oval underscore. So in that we have three types. One is primary key, candidate key and super key. So primary keys are the key which are uniquely identified. Say for example, student. Here the primary key is the roll number which is unique and identifiable. That is example for primary key. Next we have candidate key. So the candidate key can have more than one candidate key except for the primary key. So that is a candidate key. Next is super key, the set of entities that collectively identifies an entity set, that is an super key. Next we have relationship between the entities. So how do we describe the relationship between the entities? So relationship is an association between the two entities. So relationship means it's always between the two people. In the same way, it's an association between the two entities. Relationship is used to describe the relationship between the entities. It is used to describe the relationship between the entities. Example, one can imagine a student entity being associated to an academic course. Entity via, say, and enrolled in a relationship. So here in this example, the student entity is being associated with the academic course. So and it is enrolled in a relationship. It's between the student and the academic course. So it describes the relationship between the student and his academic course. So which describes the relationship between two entities. Next is degree of a relationship. The number of different entities set participating in a relation is called degree of the relationship. In that there are four types. First one is unary, binary, ternary and n-ary. So let's see what is unary relationship. When there is only one entity set participating in a relation, here only unary means one. Here only one entity participating in the relationship, that is called a unary relationship. For example, one person has only one passport. That is an example for unary relationship. Here we have person married. So that is person got married to one person. That's an example for unary relationship. Next we have binary. So the name itself says that binary means two. So when there are two entities participating in a relation, the relationship is called binary relation. Here we have two entities. The two entities are participating in a relation is called binary relationship. For example, student enrolled in course. Here we have two entities, student and course. So it is an example for binary relationship. Next is ternary. So in ternary relationship is an association among three entities. Ternary means three. When three entities are participating in a relation is called ternary relationship. This type of relation is required when binary relationships are not sufficient to accurately describe the semantics of the association. So it is basically used when the binary relationships are not sufficient accurately. When they are not sufficiently accurate, we use ternary relationship and it describes the semantics of the association. Say for example, we have notebooks. Notebook we have username. In that username we have project and technician. So it's an example for ternary relationship. Next we have n-ary. So that is the last type. N means there are countless, so many numbers. So when there are n entities are participating in a relationship, the relationship is called as n-array relationship. So it is all about the types of degrees of relationship. Next is structural constant. So in structural constant, cardinality ratio and participating relationship together is considered as a structural constant. So cardinality ratio and participating relationship together is considered as a structural constant. So constants on the binary relationship, binary means when two entities are participating in a relationship. So constant on the binary relationship type. So relationship types generally have certain constants that limit the possible combination of entities that may participating in the corresponding relationship set. A relationship where two entities are participating is called binary relation. So as we already know that when two entities are participating in a relation is called binary relationship. So there are two main types of binary relation. One is cardinality ratio and participation. So in the cardinality ratio is the number of instances of the entity from the relationship that can associated with the relation. So cardinality ratio is the number of instances of an entity from the relation that can associated from the relation. So there are four types of cardinality. So one to one, one to many to one, and many to many. First one is one to one. Here, the single instance of the one entity is participating in the single instance of the other entity. Means here we have two relations A and B. So A is associated with the B, only single instance of the one entity. First one is one to one. In one entity set participating with the other entity set only once. Here A1 participating with B1 only once, and A2 participating with B2 only once, and A3 participating with B3 only once. This is one to one relationship. Example, a person has only one passport. That is an example for one to one. Next is one to many. Here, when a single instance of an entity is associated with more than one instance of the other entity. There we saw single instance of one entity is associated with a single instance of other entity. But here the single instance of one entity is associated with one instance of the other entity. This type of relationship is called one to many. So here you can see in the relationship A and B, the single instance of one entity is associated with more than two. This is an example for one to many. It has more than one entity. So A is associated with B1 and B2. A2 is associated with B2 and B3. A3 is associated with B4. So it's an example for one to many. Here we have surgeon department has doctors. So in one surgeon department there are many doctors. So it's an example for one to many. Next, many to one. Many to one. When entities in one entity set participating only once in the relations set, and entities in the other entities can participate more than once in a relationship set. That is, here one entity set can participate only one, but the other entity set can participate more than once. That is many to one. So here A is only participating with B only once, and A2 is participating with B1, and A3 is participating with B1. So B can participate with the other entities many times, but A must be participate only once. Say for example, multiple surgeries done by single surgeon. A single surgeon can do multiple surgeries. So that is many to one. Next is many to many. Here more than one instance of an entity is associated with the more than one instance of the other entity is called many to many relationship. So here one instance of an entity is associated more than one instance to the other entity. So this cardinality is an entity set that participate in any number of times in the cardinality ratio, that is many to many. Here A is associated with B, A is associated with B2, and A is also associated with B3. So the participating set can associate with the other set many times. Examples, employee work on the multiple projects. So it's an example for many to many. Thank you.